The words hung in the air between them, 5 simple words that crashed into Daniel's world like a wrecking ball. "Mom told me you're my father." The boy, no more than 8 or 9, stood on Daniel's doorstep, a small backpack clutched in his hands, his eyes a mirror image of Daniel's own. Daniel gripped the doorframe to steady himself. His packed suitcases sat in the hallway behind him, ready for tomorrow's flight to Seattle and the fresh start he'd spent 2 years planning. The moving truck had already taken everything else. "I'm sorry," Daniel managed, his throat dry. "There must be some mistake." The boy's face fell slightly, but his gaze remained unwavering. "My mom is Eliza Harmon. She said you'd remember her." Eliza. The name hit Daniel like a physical blow. Of course he remembered her, 9 years ago, before the accident, before everything changed. "Where is your mother now?" Daniel asked, scanning the empty street behind the child. "At the hospital. She told me to give you this." The boy reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded note and a small photograph. Daniel's hands trembled as he unfolded the paper, recognizing Eliza's handwriting immediately. "Daniel, this is your son, Noah. I'm sorry for the shock. I never told you because of how things ended between us. I have stage 4 cancer. The treatments aren't working anymore. I have no family left. He has nowhere else to go. Please, just keep him safe until I can figure something out. I'll call you when I can." Eliza Daniel stared at the photograph. A younger Eliza held a newborn baby, her smile tired but radiant. The date stamp in the corner aligned perfectly with their brief relationship nearly a decade ago. "How did you get here?" Daniel asked, still trying to process what was happening. "Mom's friend Diane dropped me off. She had to get back to Mom at the hospital." Noah shifted his weight from one foot to the other. "Can I come in? I'm hungry." Daniel stepped aside automatically, his mind racing. As Noah walked past him into the nearly empty house, Daniel caught a glimpse of the child's profile. The same nose, the same jawline that looked back at him from the mirror every morning. There was no denying it. His phone buzzed in his pocket, his boss, wondering if he'd finished packing for the transfer. Seattle. The promotion. The new beginning. Everything he'd worked for since the accident that had taken his brother's life and left Daniel determined to start fresh somewhere else. All of it now hanging in the balance because of the small boy standing in his empty living room, looking up at him with familiar eyes. 2 years before Noah appeared on his doorstep, Daniel had been a different man. His life in Chicago had been comfortable, predictable. He'd built a successful career as an architectural engineer, owned a well-appointed townhouse, and had close relationships with his younger brother, Michael, and their parents. Weekends were spent on Lake Michigan in the summer and at family dinners during the colder months. He dated casually, but never seriously. At 36, he'd convinced himself he was content. Then came the accident. Daniel and Michael had been driving back from their parents' anniversary dinner when the truck hit them. Daniel walked away with minor injuries. Michael didn't walk away at all. The memories washed over Daniel as he heated up a frozen pizza, the only food left in his nearly empty house, for Noah. The boy sat quietly at the kitchen counter, his small legs dangling from the stool. "Did you know about me?" Noah asked suddenly. Daniel placed a glass of water in front of the child. "No," he answered honestly. "Your mom and we weren't together very long." 8 months, Noah said matter-of-factly. "Mom told me." Daniel nodded, surprised by the accuracy. He and Eliza had met at a charity event, dated through a Chicago winter and spring, and parted ways amicably that summer when their relationship had naturally run its course. She'd been vibrant, independent, a graphic designer with a loud laugh and quiet ambitions. They'd never talked about a future together. "She has all these pictures of you," Noah continued, "in a box under her bed. I wasn't supposed to look, but I did." The microwave beeped. Daniel removed the pizza, cut it into slices, and placed a plate in front of Noah. As the boy ate hungrily, Daniel studied him. Noah had Eliza's coloring, light brown hair with golden highlights, but Daniel's features were unmistakable in the boy's face. "How long have you known? About me being about us being related?" Daniel couldn't bring himself to say the word father yet. Noah shrugged. "Mom only told me last week, when she got really sick." He took another bite of pizza. "She said she should have told both of us a long time ago." Daniel's phone rang. A Chicago area code he didn't recognize. "Hello?" he answered cautiously. "Mr. Brennan? This is Nurse Watkins from Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I'm calling about Eliza Harmon. You're listed as her emergency contact." Daniel's eyes darted to Noah, who was focused on his pizza. "Yes, how is she?" "Ms. Harmon has been admitted to the ICU. Her condition has deteriorated rapidly. She's asking for you." Daniel felt the room tilt slightly. "I'll be there as soon as I can." He hung up and stared at Noah, who looked back at him with sauce on his chin. "That was about Mom, wasn't it?" Noah asked quietly. Daniel nodded, reaching for a paper towel to wipe the boy's face. The gesture felt strange, intimate in a way he wasn't prepared for. "We need to go to the hospital." As they drove through the Chicago evening, Daniel glanced repeatedly at the rearview mirror, still shocked to see a child, his child, sitting in the back seat. Noah stared out the window, his small face solemn in the passing streetlights. "She's going to die, isn't she?" Noah asked suddenly. Daniel's hands tightened on the steering wheel. "Don't know," he answered, but the truth hung heavily between them. The hospital corridors seemed endless as they made their way to the ICU. A nurse directed them to a small waiting area while she checked if they could see Eliza. Noah sat beside Daniel, their shoulders almost touching. "I'm scared," Noah whispered. Without thinking, Daniel put his arm around the boy's thin shoulders. "Me too," he admitted. The nurse returned and led them to Eliza's room. Daniel almost didn't recognize her. The vibrant woman he'd known was now gaunt, her once thick hair thin against the pillow. But her eyes, those were the same, lighting up when she saw Noah. "My sweet boy," she whispered, holding out a frail hand. Noah rushed to her side, carefully hugging her as if afraid she might break. Daniel hung back, unsure of his place in this intimate moment. Eliza's eyes met his over Noah's head. "Daniel," she said softly, "thank you for coming." He stepped closer, emotions warring within him, anger at being kept in the dark, sympathy for her condition, and overwhelming confusion about what came next. "You should have told me," he said quietly. "I know." Her voice was barely audible. "I was wrong." Noah climbed onto the bed beside his mother, and Eliza stroked his hair with trembling fingers. "The doctors say I need to stay here for a while," she told him. "You're going to stay with your father until I get better." Daniel opened his mouth to protest, to mention Seattle, the job transfer, the life he'd planned, but the words died on his lips as he watched Eliza press a kiss to their son's forehead. Outside in the hallway, the doctor confirmed what Daniel had already guessed. Eliza's pancreatic cancer had metastasized. They were making her comfortable, but the prognosis was measured in weeks, not months. As Daniel drove Noah back to his nearly empty house, his phone buzzed with a message from his boss. "Flight confirmation for tomorrow attached. Can't wait to have you on the Seattle team." Daniel glanced at Noah, who had fallen asleep in the back seat, his small chest rising and falling peacefully. The Seattle dream suddenly felt like it belonged to someone else, someone from another lifetime. The next morning, Daniel woke to the unfamiliar sound of cartoons playing softly in his living room. For a moment he lay still, disoriented, before the events of the previous day came rushing back. Noah, his son, Eliza in the hospital, Seattle. He reached for his phone and dialed his boss's number. "Greg, something's come up. A family emergency. I need to postpone the move." Daniel's voice sounded strange to his own ears, determined yet uncertain. Greg was understanding but concerned. The position won't wait forever, Daniel. We need someone in Seattle by the end of the month. I know. I just need some time to figure things out. A week, maybe 2. After hanging up, Daniel stood in the doorway of his living room watching Noah. The boy sat cross-legged, on the floor, using Daniel's coffee table as a desk, drawing in a sketchbook he'd pulled from his backpack. "You're good at that," Daniel said, noticing the detailed spaceship taking shape on the page. Noah looked up, surprised. "Mom says I get it from you. She said you draw buildings." "I design them," Daniel corrected gently. "I'm an architect." "Cool." Noah turned back to his drawing. "Can we visit Mom today?" "Of course." Daniel hesitated. "Are you hungry? I don't have much food here since I was supposed to move, but we can go out for breakfast." At the diner down the street, Daniel watched in fascination as Noah devoured a stack of pancakes. The boy ate with enthusiasm, occasionally looking up to ask questions about Daniel's work or comment on the other patrons. "Mom says I talk too much sometimes," Noah said between bites. Daniel smiled. "I don't mind." After breakfast, they stopped at a department store where Daniel bought Noah some basic necessities: toothbrush, pajamas, a few changes of clothes. The domesticity of the task felt surreal. At the hospital, Eliza was more alert. She'd been moved to a private room, and a nurse was adjusting her IV when they arrived. "There's my guys," Eliza said, her smile weak but genuine. While Noah showed his mother his drawings, Daniel stepped into the hallway with Dr. Patel, Eliza's oncologist. "She's responded well to the pain management, but the cancer is aggressive," Dr. Patel explained. "We're looking at hospice care options." "How long?" Daniel asked, the question barely audible. "A month, maybe less." Dr. Patel's expression was compassionate but honest. "Has she made arrangements for the boy?" Daniel swallowed hard. "I'm his father. He'll be with me." The words felt strange on his tongue, but as he said them, something shifted inside him. A sense of responsibility, of connection that he couldn't deny. Back in the room, Eliza asked Noah to find the vending machine down the hall and get himself a snack. Once they were alone, she turned to Daniel. "I know this isn't fair to you," she said, her voice stronger than it had been the night before. "Dropping him into your life like this." Daniel sat in the chair beside her bed. "Why didn't you tell me, Eliza? All these years." She looked away. "At first, I thought I could do it on my own. I was stubborn, independent. By the time I realized how hard it would be, you had moved on. I heard you were dating someone seriously." "Vanessa," Daniel supplied. "We were together for 2 years." "I didn't want to disrupt your life." Eliza's eyes filled with tears. "Then more time passed and it got harder to imagine making that call. I kept telling myself Noah and I were doing fine on our own." "We could have worked something out," Daniel said, surprised by the hurt in his voice. "I missed 8 years of his life." "I know." Eliza reached for his hand. "I can't change that, but he needs you now, Daniel. He has no one else." Daniel thought of his empty apartment in Seattle, waiting for him. The job that would consume his waking hours. The fresh start that suddenly seemed hollow compared to the responsibility before him. "I'll take care of him," Daniel promised, and meant it. When Noah returned, clutching a candy bar and a soda, Eliza patted the bed beside her. "Come sit with me, sweetheart. I want to tell you about the time your dad and I went sailing and he fell overboard trying to impress me." Noah's eyes widened, and he looked at Daniel with new interest. "You fell in the water?" Daniel smiled despite himself. "I did, and your mom laughed so hard she nearly fell in too." For the next hour they shared stories, Eliza filling in the blanks of their brief relationship for Noah, Daniel learning about his son's early years. The atmosphere was bittersweet, a family forming even as it prepared to fracture. As they were leaving, Eliza asked Daniel to come close. "There's a box in my apartment," she whispered. "Under my bed. Noah's birth certificate is there. And photos, letters, things I've saved for him. The spare key is with my neighbor, Mrs. Castillo, in 3B. Daniel nodded, understanding the unspoken request. Go now while Noah is with you, before it's too late. That evening, after they'd visited Eliza's apartment and collected the important documents and mementos, Daniel sat on the edge of his bed, staring at Noah's birth certificate. There it was in black and white, father's name, Daniel James Brennan. His phone buzzed with a text from his mother. Your father and I are worried. What's this about delaying Seattle? Are you okay? Daniel looked toward the guest room where Noah was sleeping. How could he explain this to his parents? To anyone? His life had been completely upended in less than 48 hours. Yet as he sat there, surrounded by evidence of a child he'd never known, report cards showing excellent grades, drawings that revealed real talent, photos of Noah growing from infant to toddler to the boy now sleeping under his roof, Daniel felt something unexpected taking root inside him. Not just responsibility, but curiosity, wonder, the beginning of connection. His finger hovered over his mother's number, then moved to the calendar app instead. He canceled his flight to Seattle, then emailed his boss requesting a full month of family leave. It was time to face what was in front of him, not what might have been. The next 2 weeks fell into an unexpected rhythm. Mornings began with Daniel making breakfast, his cooking skills improving gradually from burnt toast to decent pancakes, while Noah got ready for school. Daniel had enrolled him at the local elementary, explaining the situation as vaguely as possible to the sympathetic principal. Afternoons were split between hospital visits and setting up a proper bedroom for Noah in what had been Daniel's home office. They painted the walls blue, assembled a desk for Noah's drawing supplies, and hung a solar system, mobile from the ceiling. Did you always want to be an architect? Noah asked one evening as they worked together to build a bookshelf. Daniel handed him a screwdriver. Not always. When I was your age, I wanted to be an astronaut. Noah's eyes lit up. Really? Me too. These moments of connection were becoming more frequent, small bridges forming between them. Daniel learned that Noah was allergic to strawberries, loved science fiction, and could spend hours drawing intricate spaceships and futuristic cities. Noah discovered that Daniel could make the perfect grilled cheese sandwich and knew an impressive amount about constellations. But there were difficult moments too. Noah's nightmares, which brought Daniel rushing to his room in the early hours. The boy's sudden mood swings, from chatty enthusiasm to withdrawn silence. The questions Daniel wasn't sure how to answer. Will Mom get better? Noah asked during their 3rd week together as they drove to the hospital. Daniel gripped the steering wheel tighter. The doctors are doing everything they can, he said carefully. Noah stared out the window. That's not what I asked. Daniel took a deep breath. Nobody. I don't think she will. Noah nodded, as if confirming something he already knew. When she dies, will I still live with you? The directness of the question caught Daniel off guard. Yes, he said firmly. You'll stay with me. Even though you didn't know about me before? Daniel pulled the car into the hospital parking lot and turned to face his son. Noah, I'm your father. That doesn't change no matter when or how I found out. The boy studied Daniel's face, searching for truth. Okay, he said finally. I just wanted to be sure. At the hospital, Eliza was having a difficult day. The pain medication made her drowsy, and she drifted in and out of consciousness during their visit. Noah sat beside her, holding her hand and telling her about school in a soft, steady voice. In the hallway, Dr. Patel updated Daniel. We're looking at days now, not weeks. Has she discussed hospice care with you? Daniel nodded. They'd had several conversations about Eliza's wishes. She wanted to remain lucid enough to say goodbye to Noah, then transition to comfort care at home. I've arranged for home hospice, Daniel said. My house is ready. Dr. Patel looked surprised. Most patients in her condition prefer to stay here. "It's what she wants," Daniel explained. "To be somewhere familiar, with Noah nearby." 2 days later, an ambulance transported Eliza to Daniel's house. A hospital bed had been set up in the living room, positioned to look out the large front windows at the maple tree beginning to turn red with autumn. Hospice nurses came and went, adjusting medication and checking vital signs. Noah divided his time between school, sitting with his mother, and retreating to his room to draw. Daniel worked remotely when he could, making calls from the kitchen and responding to emails late at night after Noah was asleep. His parents had visited once, shell-shocked by the revelation of their grandson, but rallying quickly. His mother now called daily, offering to help with Noah or to sit with Eliza so Daniel could rest. "You don't have to do this alone," she told him repeatedly. But something in Daniel needed to do exactly that, to be present for both Noah and Eliza, to witness this ending and beginning intertwined. One evening, while Noah was taking a shower, Eliza beckoned Daniel to her bedside. Her voice was weak, but her mind was clear. "I need to know you're at peace with this," she said, with raising him. Daniel sat beside her. "I am," he answered truthfully. "He's an amazing kid, Eliza. You've done an incredible job." She smiled faintly. "He's so much like you, stubborn, creative. That serious look he gets when he's concentrating." Her fingers plucked restlessly at the blanket. "There's something else you should know, about why I never told you." Daniel waited, unsure if he wanted to hear what came next. "After we broke up, I found out I was pregnant. I was going to tell you, but then I saw you with your brother at that cafe on Michigan Avenue. You were laughing, so carefree." She paused, gathering strength. "I knew having a child wasn't part of your plan. I convinced myself I'd be disrupting your life." "That wasn't your decision to make," Daniel said quietly. "I know that now." Tears slipped down Eliza's hollow cheeks. "When I heard about Michael's accident, I almost called you. But by then, it had been years. I was afraid you'd hate me for keeping Noah from you." Daniel thought about the grief that had consumed him after Michael's death. How he'd pushed everyone away, focused solely on work, on escaping Chicago, and the memories it held. "I might have," he admitted. "Back then, but not now." Eliza's hand found his. "Promise me something. Tell him stories about me. Not just the sad ending, but the good parts too." "I promise," Daniel whispered. 3 days later, with Noah asleep in his room and Daniel dozing in the chair beside her bed, Eliza slipped away peacefully in the early hours of the morning. The hospice nurse woke Daniel gently, her eyes compassionate as she confirmed what he already knew. Daniel sat alone with Eliza for a long time, holding her hand as it grew cold, trying to reconcile the vibrant woman he'd once known with the still form before him. When the first light of dawn filtered through the windows, he went to wake Noah. The boy was already sitting up in bed, as if he'd sensed the change in the house. "Is Mom gone?" he asked. Daniel nodded, sitting beside him on the bed. "Yes, she went very peacefully, in her sleep." Noah's face crumpled, and he fell against Daniel's chest, sobs shaking his small body. Daniel held him tightly, his own tears falling into his son's hair. "I'm here," he murmured. "I've got you." They stayed that way for a long time, grief binding them, together more powerfully than blood ever could. The funeral was small but beautiful. Eliza had left detailed instructions, which Daniel followed to the letter. White Lilies, her favorite poem read by her closest friend, a display of her artwork and photography. Noah, solemn in a new suit, stood beside Daniel, their hands clasped tightly together. Afterward, at the reception in Daniel's home, Noah disappeared upstairs. When Daniel went to check on him, he found the boy sitting on his bed, surrounded by photographs from the box they'd retrieved from Eliza's apartment. "She looks so happy here," Noah said, holding up a picture of Eliza laughing on a beach, her hair blowing in the wind. Daniel sat beside him. That was in Michigan. We took a weekend trip to the dunes. Noah studied the photo carefully. Were you happy with her? The question caught Daniel off guard. Yes, he answered honestly. We had a good time together. Then why did you break up? Daniel considered how to explain adult relationships to an 8-year-old. Sometimes people can care about each other but want different things from life. Your mom was very independent. She wanted to travel, focus on her art, and I was very focused on my career. If you had known about me, would you have stayed together? The question pierced Daniel's heart. I don't know, he admitted, but I would have been part of your life from the beginning, that I'm sure of. Noah nodded, seemingly satisfied with this answer. He carefully returned the photos to the box, except for one, the beach picture, which he placed on his nightstand. Can I stay up here for a while? He asked. I don't want to talk to any more grown-ups saying they're sorry. Daniel ruffled his hair gently. Sure, I'll come check on you in a bit. Downstairs, Daniel found his boss Greg among the guests. The Seattle position had been filled, but Greg had assured Daniel his job in Chicago was secure. How are you holding up? Greg asked, handing Daniel a glass of water. Taking it day by day, Daniel replied. Noah's enrolled in school here. We're establishing a routine. Greg nodded sympathetically. And the custody situation? Straightforward, thankfully. I'm his biological father, listed on the birth certificate. Eliza named me as guardian in her will. Daniel glanced toward the stairs. Legally, it's simple. Emotionally, he trailed off. It's a lot to process, Greg finished for him. If you need more time... Actually, I'd like to come back next week, Daniel said, surprising himself with the decision. Part-time at first, if that works. I think we both need some normalcy. After the guests departed, Daniel found Noah asleep on his bed, surrounded by photographs. Carefully, he gathered them up and placed them back in the box, then covered his son with a blanket. His son. The phrase was becoming less strange, more natural. As he watched Noah sleeping, Daniel felt a fierce protectiveness wash over him. This child, this unexpected gift, was his responsibility now, his family. The next morning, Daniel woke to find Noah in the kitchen, attempting to make pancakes. Flour dusted the countertops, and batter dripped onto the floor, but the determined set of the boy's jaw stopped Daniel from intervening. Mom always made pancakes on Sundays, Noah explained, carefully flipping a misshapen cake in the pan. I thought we could do that too. Daniel swallowed the lump in his throat. That sounds like a great tradition to continue. As they ate their imperfect breakfast, Noah looked up suddenly. Are we staying in Chicago? Yes, Daniel answered. This is our home now. What about Seattle? Daniel was surprised Noah remembered. That job was right for the old me, the me before you. Now I need to be where you have friends, school, memories of your mom. Noah considered this, then nodded. Good, I like it here. The following week brought new challenges. Daniel returned to work part-time, arranging his schedule around Noah's school hours and engaging an after-school sitter for the gaps. Noah had moments of seeming fine, followed by periods of withdrawal or anger. One evening, he refused to eat dinner, shouting that Daniel's cooking wasn't as good as his mother's before running to his room and slamming the door. Daniel gave him space, then brought up a sandwich and sat on the edge of the bed. I know I'm not her, he said quietly. I'm not trying to replace her. Noah looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. I miss her so much it hurts inside. Me too, Daniel admitted. And that's okay. We're allowed to miss her. They sat in silence for a while, the sandwich untouched between them. Did you know, Daniel said finally, that your mom and I once tried to cook Thanksgiving dinner together? The turkey caught fire, and we ended up ordering Chinese food. A small smile tugged at Noah's lips. Really? Really. She was terrible at following recipes, said they stifled her creativity. Noah nodded. She always added weird stuff to pancakes. Once she put crushed potato chips in the batter. Were they good? Daniel asked. Gross, Noah answered, and they both laughed. These moments, sharing memories of Eliza, finding common ground, slowly built a foundation between them. Daniel learned to navigate Noah's grief alongside his own adjustment to fatherhood. There were missteps, forgotten permission slips, arguments over bedtime, a disastrous attempt at helping with a science project. But there were triumphs too. Noah's first A on a math test under Daniel's tutoring, a successful parent-teacher conference. The Saturday they spent building a model rocket and launching it in the park. Noah's whoop of joy as it soared into the blue October sky. 1 month after Eliza's death, Daniel received a call from her attorney. There's something else, the lawyer explained. A letter Eliza wrote to Noah to be given to him on his 18th birthday. She asked that you keep it safe until then. When the letter arrived, Daniel placed it in the fireproof safe where he kept their important documents. Another piece of Eliza for Noah to discover someday, another thread connecting past to future. That evening, as Daniel helped Noah with his homework, the boy looked up suddenly. Are you my dad now, or just my father? Daniel set down his pen, recognizing the importance of the distinction. What do you think is the difference? Noah considered this seriously. A father is just biology, but a dad is someone who's there, who helps with homework and makes lunch and knows what you're afraid of. And what are you afraid of? Daniel asked softly. Noah looked down at his math worksheet. That you'll decide this is too hard. That you'll wish you'd gone to Seattle instead. Daniel placed his hand gently under Noah's chin, lifting it until their eyes met. I'm your father by biology, yes, but I want to be your dad in all the ways that matter, and I don't wish I was anywhere else but here with you. Noah studied his face, searching for truth in the way children do, without filters or pretense. Whatever he saw must have satisfied him, because he nodded once, decisively, then turned back to his homework. That night, after Noah was asleep, Daniel sat in the living room where Eliza had spent her final days. The house felt different now, no longer a place he was planning to leave, but a home being rebuilt around the needs of a child, around family. He thought about Michael, about the grief that had driven him to plan his escape to Seattle, how he'd been running from pain, from memories, from the empty space his brother had left behind. Now, instead of running away, he was building something new, not replacing what was lost, but creating space for something unexpected, something that felt, improbably, like healing. Daniel took out his phone and scrolled to the Seattle real estate listing he'd saved, the sleek downtown apartment with city views and proximity to his almost new office. With a deep breath, he deleted the bookmark. Then he opened his browser to local youth baseball leagues instead. Noah had mentioned wanting to try sports, and spring registration would be opening soon. It was time to put down roots, not pull them up. Time to become not just a father, but a dad. The confrontation Daniel had been dreading finally came 6 weeks after Eliza's death. He'd known it was inevitable, the questions, the accusations, the pain of truth, but nothing prepared him for the reality of it. It began with a phone call from Noah's school. Mr. Brennan, there's been an incident. Noah got into a fight with another student. Daniel found Noah sitting outside the principal's office, a bruise forming under his right eye, his knuckles raw. The principal, Mrs. Tanner, ushered them into her office with a concerned expression. Noah punched Jeremy Wilson after Jeremy made some comments about Noah's family situation, she explained diplomatically. He said I was lying about having a dad, Noah burst out. He said if you were really my father, you would have been around my whole life. He called Mom a liar. Daniel felt a cold knot form in his stomach. Noah, violence isn't the answer, no matter what someone says. But he was wrong. You are my dad. Mom didn't lie. Noah's voice rose, tears threatening. Mrs. Tanner intervened gently. Noah will have detention tomorrow, But I think what he needs most right now is to talk this through at home." The car ride was silent, Noah staring out the window, Daniel gripping the steering wheel too tightly. At home, Noah headed straight for his room, but Daniel called him back. "We need to talk about this," he said firmly. Noah stood in the living room, arms crossed defensively. "There's nothing to talk about. Jeremy's a jerk." "Sit down, please." Reluctantly, Noah perched on the edge of the couch. Daniel sat across from him, choosing his words carefully. "I understand why you got angry. Jeremy said hurtful things about your mom, about us. He said she was a liar, that you weren't really my father because real fathers don't abandon their kids." Noah's voice trembled. "But you didn't know about me, right?" The question hung in the air between them, loaded with more meaning than Noah himself might have realized. Daniel could have taken the easy route, confirmed the simple narrative that he'd been completely in the dark until Noah appeared on his doorstep. But something told him this moment required absolute honesty. "It's complicated," Daniel began. "Your mother and I dated briefly, almost 9 years ago. When we broke up, I didn't know she was pregnant with you. She made a choice not to tell me." Noah nodded. This much he knew. "But," Daniel continued, his throat tightening, "there were moments over the years when I wondered about her. Once, about 5 years ago, I ran into a mutual friend who mentioned Eliza had a son. I did the math in my head and realized there was a possibility." Noah's eyes widened. "You knew?" "I suspected," Daniel corrected, "but I told myself it couldn't be true, that Eliza would have told me if I had a child. I convinced myself our timing was off, that she must have met someone else right after me." He took a deep breath. "I chose not to find out for certain, Noah. That's the truth." Noah stared at him, processing this revelation. "So you could have known about me, but you didn't want to?" The accusation cut deep, precisely because it contained a kernel of truth. "I was afraid," Daniel admitted. "Afraid of disrupting my life, afraid of being wrong, afraid of being right. It was easier to believe you weren't my responsibility." "So Jeremy was right," Noah said quietly. "You did abandon me." "No," Daniel said firmly. "I made a mistake. I should have asked questions, sought answers. But I never knew you existed for certain until you showed up at my door. And from that moment on, I've been committed to being your father." Noah was silent for a long moment. "Did you love my mom?" The question caught Daniel off guard. "We cared about each other," he said carefully. "But we weren't in love." "Then why did you have me?" Noah's voice was small, confused. Daniel moved to sit beside him on the couch. "Sometimes people have children without planning to. That doesn't mean those children aren't wanted or loved once they're here." "But you didn't want me before you knew me," Noah persisted. "I didn't know what I was missing," Daniel corrected gently. "Now that I do know you, I can't imagine my life without you in it." Noah looked unconvinced. "What if you change your mind?" "That's not how being a parent works," Daniel said. "It's not something you can change your mind about. I'm your father forever, no matter what." Noah studied his hands. "Jeremy said his dad left when he was little. That's why he got so mad at me. Because I said I found my dad and he's great, and Jeremy said I was lying." Understanding dawned. "Jeremy was projecting his own pain onto you," Daniel explained. "Sometimes people lash out when they're hurting." Noah nodded slowly. "Like I did when I hit him." "Exactly. But there are better ways to handle those feelings." They sat in silence for a moment, the weight of truth between them. "I'm sorry I didn't look for you," Daniel said finally. "That's something I'll always regret. But I'm here now, and I'm not going anywhere." Noah leaned against him slightly, not fully accepting, but not pulling away either. "I should apologize to Jeremy, shouldn't I?" "Yes, you should, and maybe try to understand why he was so upset." The next day, Noah apologized to Jeremy. To Daniel's surprise, the two boys were sitting together at lunch by the end of the week, united by their complicated family situations in the way only children can manage. That weekend, Daniel took Noah to visit Michael's grave. He hadn't been since the funeral, his grief too raw, but it felt important now to connect these parts of his life. "This is my brother," he explained as they stood before the headstone. "Your Uncle Michael." Noah placed the flowers they'd brought carefully at the base of the stone. "What was he like?" "Funny, kind, stubborn." Daniel smiled at the memories. "He would have loved being your uncle." "Is that why you were going to move to Seattle? Because you were sad about him?" Daniel nodded, impressed by Noah's perception. "I thought a fresh start would help, but sometimes what you need isn't a new beginning somewhere else. Sometimes it's finding new meaning right where you are." Noah considered this, then reached for Daniel's hand. "I'm glad you stayed." As they walked back to the car, Noah asked, "Can we get ice cream?" "Sure," Daniel agreed, grateful for the shift to normalcy. "But first, I want to show you something." He drove them to a construction site on the north side of the city. A modern building was taking shape, all glass and sustainable materials. "This is my design," Daniel explained. "A community center with art studios, classrooms, and a science lab for kids. It's going to be named after your mom." Noah's eyes widened. "Really?" "Really. I submitted the proposal last week, and it was approved. The Eliza Harmon Arts and Science Center." Noah stared at the building, then back at Daniel. That's really cool. I thought maybe you could help with some of the interior design ideas. What would make it a place you'd want to spend time in?" Noah's face lit up. "Could there be a space rocket in the science lab? And easels by the windows for drawing?" "Absolutely," Daniel said. "It's going to be a place where kids can create and explore just like you and your mom love to do." As they continued to the ice cream shop, Daniel felt something shift between them. Not forgiveness exactly, there was still much to work through, but understanding. A bridge forming over the chasm of missed years and painful truths. That night, as he tucked Noah into bed, the boy asked, "Are we okay, you and me?" Daniel sat on the edge of the bed. "We're more than okay. We're family." Noah nodded, satisfied. "Good. Because I've been thinking about changing my last name to Brennan. Would that be all right?" Daniel felt his throat tighten with emotion. "That would be more than all right. That would be wonderful." Noah smiled sleepily. "Night, Dad." The word hung in the air, precious and new. "Good night, son," Daniel whispered back. The revelation came on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, 7 months after Noah had first appeared on Daniel's doorstep. Life had settled into a comfortable rhythm: school and work, baseball practice and architecture projects, movie nights and weekend adventures. The sharp edges of grief had softened, though Noah still kept his mother's photo by his bed and sometimes grew quiet on significant dates. Daniel was working from home, reviewing blueprints at the dining table while Noah did homework, when the doorbell rang. He opened it to find a woman in her mid-30s, professionally dressed, with a portfolio case under her arm. "Daniel Brennan?" she asked. "I'm Vanessa Mitchell. We need to talk." Daniel froze, recognition washing over him. Vanessa, his ex-girlfriend from 3 years ago, the serious relationship Eliza had mentioned. "This isn't a good time," he said cautiously, aware of Noah in the next room. "It's about Eliza Harmon," Vanessa persisted. "And Noah." Daniel stepped onto the porch, pulling the door nearly closed behind him. "How do you know about them?" Vanessa's expression was grim. "I was Eliza's attorney. I handled her will, her estate. She was my client for years." Daniel struggled to process this information. "You never mentioned knowing her when we were together." "Attorney-client privilege," Vanessa replied. And frankly, it was awkward. My boyfriend's ex-girlfriend with his child he didn't know about? Not exactly dinner conversation. "What do you want, Vanessa?" Daniel asked, unease growing. She opened her portfolio and removed a sealed envelope. "Eliza left this with me, to be delivered to you in the event of her death. I've been putting it off, trying to decide if I should get involved at all." Daniel took the envelope, his name written in Eliza's familiar handwriting across the front. "Why now?" "Because I ran into Noah's pediatrician at a conference last week. Dr. Chen mentioned how well Noah was adjusting to living with his father." Vanessa's eyes held a challenge. "Except you're not his father, Daniel, and Eliza wanted you to know the truth." The world seemed to tilt beneath Daniel's feet. "What are you talking about? I'm listed on his birth certificate. He looks just like me." "Read the letter," Vanessa said simply, "and call me when you have." She handed him a business card, then walked back to her car without another word. Daniel stood on the porch, rain soaking into his shirt, the envelope heavy in his hand. Inside, he could hear Noah humming as he worked on his math problems, oblivious to the bombshell that had just been delivered. With trembling fingers, Daniel opened the envelope and unfolded the letter inside. "Daniel, if you're reading this, I'm gone, and Noah is with you. I hope you've come to love him as your own, because in every way that matters, you are his father. But biologically, there's something you should know. Noah's biological father is Michael, your brother. It happened only once, a few weeks after you and I broke up. Michael came to return some of my things you'd left at your parents' house. We got talking, had too much wine. It was a mistake we both regretted immediately. When I discovered I was pregnant, I couldn't bear to tell either of you. It would have destroyed your relationship with your brother, and Michael was devastated by his lapse in loyalty to you. We agreed to keep it secret. Michael sent support money when he could, visited Noah occasionally as my friend when you weren't in town. When Michael died, I lost the only other person who knew the truth. I've wrestled with whether to ever tell you this. Part of me believes you deserve to know that Noah is your nephew, your brother's living legacy. Another part fears it will change how you feel about Noah, about me, about the responsibility you've taken on. In the end, I leave that choice to you. Noah believes you are his father. Legally, you are listed as such. What you do with this truth is your decision. I'm sorry for the pain this may cause. Please know that my greatest wish is for Noah to be loved and secure, whether as your son or your nephew. Eliza. Daniel read the letter 3 times, his mind refusing to accept what his eyes were seeing. Michael and Eliza, his brother and his ex-girlfriend. Noah, the boy he'd come to love as his son, was actually his nephew. Memories flooded back. Michael's occasional awkward questions about Eliza years after they'd broken up. His brother's unusual interest in Daniel's whereabouts certain weekends. The strange expression on Michael's face the last time they'd discussed Eliza, just weeks before the accident. And Noah, his eyes, his smile, the shape of his ears, features Daniel had attributed to himself, but that he shared with Michael. Brothers with similar genetics. How had he not seen it? "Dad, are you okay?" Noah's voice from the doorway pulled Daniel back to the present. The boy stood there, concern on his face. "You're all wet." Daniel quickly folded the letter and slipped it into his pocket. "Just got caught in the rain," he managed, his voice strained. "Go finish your homework, I'll be right in." Noah hesitated, studying Daniel's face. "Who was that lady?" "An old friend," Daniel said, the half-truth bitter on his tongue. "Nothing important." Noah seemed unconvinced but returned to the dining room. Daniel leaned against the wall, his mind racing. What was he supposed to do with this information? Tell Noah? Keep it secret? How would this change things between them? That night, after Noah was asleep, Daniel sat in the dark living room, the letter on the coffee table before him. He'd called Vanessa, who confirmed what Eliza had written. She'd been Michael's confidant as well as Eliza's attorney, the keeper of a secret that had now been thrust upon Daniel. "Why did Eliza want me to know?" he'd asked. "What purpose does this serve now?" "She believed in truth," Vanessa had answered simply. "And she thought you might recognize Michael in Noah as he grows older. She wanted you to be prepared." Daniel picked up his phone and scrolled to a photo of Michael, the last one taken before the accident. He studied his brother's face, then opened a recent picture of Noah. The resemblance was there, subtle but unmistakable, in the set of the jaw, the slight dimple in the right cheek when he smiled. How had he not seen it before? Because he'd been looking for himself in Noah, not his brother. For hours, Daniel wrestled with what to do. Tell Noah now? Wait until he was older? Never reveal the truth? Each option seemed fraught with potential damage to the relationship they'd built, to Noah's sense of identity and security. Dawn found Daniel still on the couch, no closer to a decision. He went through the motions of the morning routine, making breakfast, checking homework, driving Noah to school, all while the knowledge burned inside him. At work, he couldn't focus. During a meeting about the Eliza Harmon Center, he found himself staring at the blueprints, thinking about the legacy he was creating in her name, a legacy built on a complicated truth. That evening, Noah sensed something was wrong. "Are you mad at me?" he asked as Daniel pushed food around his plate at dinner. "No, of course not," Daniel assured him. "I just have a lot on my mind." "Is it about that lady who came yesterday? You've been weird since—" Then, Daniel set down his fork. "Noah, there's something I need to tell you, something important." Noah's face grew serious. "Are you sick? Like Mom was?" "No, nothing like that," Daniel quickly reassured him. "It's about family, about who we are to each other." Noah waited, his young face open and trusting. Daniel looked at him, this child he'd come to love so deeply in such a short time, and made his decision. "I want to talk to you about adoption," he said. "About making our relationship official in every way." Noah's expression brightened. "You mean, so I'd really be your son? Legally and everything?" "Exactly," Daniel said, the weight in his chest easing slightly. "We'd go to court, sign papers, and make what we already feel official." "Yes," Noah exclaimed. "Can we do it tomorrow?" Daniel laughed, the first genuine laugh in 24 hours. "It takes a little longer than that, but I'll call a lawyer this week to get started." Later, after Noah was asleep, Daniel took out Eliza's letter again. With a deep breath, he lit a match and held it to the corner of the paper, watching as the flames consumed Eliza's confession. The ashes he scattered in the backyard, under the maple tree where they'd planted flowers in Eliza's memory. Some truths served no purpose except to wound. Some secrets were better laid to rest. Michael was gone. Eliza was gone. But Noah was here, vibrant, alive, in need of stability and love. Daniel would honor his brother's memory in other ways. Through stories, through the values he taught Noah, through living the kind of life Michael would have wanted for his son. But Noah would never need to bear the burden of knowing he was born from a single night's indiscretion, a secret kept for years. In every way that mattered, in love, in commitment, in daily care, Daniel was Noah's father. Biology was just one facet of family, and not always the most important one. The next morning, Daniel called a family law attorney and began the adoption process. When he told his parents about his decision, they were supportive, if a little surprised by the suddenness. "Are you sure about this?" his mother asked. "It's a lifetime commitment." "I've never been more sure of anything," Daniel answered truthfully. What he didn't say was that the adoption would legally cement what he'd already decided in his heart. Noah was his son. Not because of DNA, but because of choice, because of love. 8 months later, on a bright spring morning, Daniel and Noah stood before a judge in family court. Noah wore a new suit, his hair neatly combed, practically vibrating with excitement. Daniel felt a similar anticipation, mixed with a deep sense of rightness. Daniel James Brennan, do you understand that by adopting Noah Michael Harmon, you are accepting all the rights and responsibilities of a parent, as if Noah were your biological child? The judge asked. I do, Your Honor, Daniel answered firmly. And Noah, do you understand what adoption means? That Daniel will legally be your father forever? Noah nodded solemnly. Yes, ma'am. He already is my dad in my heart. This just makes it official. The judge smiled. That's a very good way of putting it. She signed the final document with a flourish. By the power vested in me by the state of Illinois, I hereby declare that Noah Michael Harmon is now legally Noah Michael Brennan, the son of Daniel James Brennan, with all the rights and privileges thereto. She handed Noah a small gavel. Would you like to make it official? Noah grinned and brought the gavel down with enthusiasm. We're officially family now, he declared. We always were, Daniel said, pulling him into a hug. This just makes sure everyone else knows it too. Outside the courthouse, Daniel's parents waited with balloons and a small gift for Noah. The four of them went to lunch to celebrate, Noah chattering excitedly about the ceremony and his new official name. Noah Michael Brennan, he repeated. It sounds right, doesn't it? It sounds perfect, Daniel's mother assured him, squeezing his hand across the table. Later that afternoon, Daniel took Noah to visit Eliza's grave. They placed fresh flowers beside the headstone, and Noah proudly told his mother about the adoption. I think she'd be happy, Noah said as they walked back to the car. Don't you? Daniel thought about the secret he'd burned, the truth he'd chosen to keep from Noah. Yes, he said honestly. Your mom wanted you to be safe and loved. That's what matters most. That evening, they had a small party at home with a few of Noah's friends from school and baseball. As Daniel watched Noah laughing with his friends, he felt a profound sense of peace. The journey to this point had been unexpected, filled with loss and revelation, but the destination felt right. After the guests had gone and Noah was getting ready for bed, Daniel noticed him standing in front of the bathroom mirror, studying his reflection. What are you looking at so intently? Daniel asked. Just seeing if I look different now that I'm officially a Brennan, Noah replied. Grandma says I have the Brennan nose. Daniel felt a momentary tightness in his chest, thinking of Michael. You're a Brennan through and through, he said, ruffling Noah's hair. No doubt about it. Noah turned and hugged him fiercely. Thanks for wanting to be my dad, he whispered. Thank you for being my son, Daniel replied, his voice thick with emotion. Later, as Noah slept, Daniel sat in the backyard under the stars, thinking about the winding path that had led him here. 2 years ago, he'd been planning to leave Chicago, running from grief and memories. Now he couldn't imagine being anywhere else. The Eliza Harmon Center was nearly complete, set to open in the fall. Noah was thriving in school and baseball. Daniel had recently been made partner at his firm, partly due to his work on the center. Life had found a new rhythm, a new purpose. He thought about Michael, about what his brother would think of all this. Would he approve of Daniel's decision to keep the truth from Noah? To raise Michael's biological son as his own? In his heart, Daniel believed he would. Michael had always valued family above all else. He would understand that Daniel's choice came from love. For Noah, for Michael himself, for the family they all formed together. The stars shone brightly overhead, the same stars that had witnessed the complicated journey that brought them here. Daniel made a silent promise to those stars, to Michael, to Eliza, and most importantly to Noah, to always put love first, to honor the trust placed in him, to be the father Noah deserved. Some might call what he'd done, burning Eliza's letter, keeping Michael's biological connection secret, a deception. Daniel saw it differently. He saw it as protecting Noah from unnecessary pain, as honoring his brother's memory in the most meaningful way possible, by loving his son as his own. In the end, wasn't that what family was truly about? Not just shared DNA, but shared lives, chosen connections. Love that transcended biology and circumstance. Daniel looked up at the night sky once more before heading inside. Tomorrow would bring baseball practice, work meetings, homework, and all the ordinary moments that made up their life together. A life built on complicated truths and simple love. A life that, despite its unexpected beginnings, felt exactly right. As he checked on Noah one last time before going to bed, Daniel watched the rise and fall of his son's chest, the peaceful expression on his sleeping face. "Good night, Noah Michael Brennan," he whispered. "Sweet dreams." In that moment, any lingering doubts Daniel might have harbored vanished completely. This was his son. This was his family. This was his life now. Not the one he'd planned, but the one he was meant to live. And he wouldn't change a thing.